Hi, and welcome to my video on Timelapse of Sharkman EXE from Mega Man Battle Network 1. First we start off with a base shape in which I use a cylinder to basically start with the shape for Sharkman, after which I guess take the underside of the cylinder, I make it narrower, and I pull it downwards to create the pelvis. And from there on out, I basically separate the pelvis into two. And I take the left and right side. I pull out a leg hole from which I put another cylinder to make the leg. After this, you can see me work on the fin, shoulders, the arms, most of which are also made cylinders, as you can see with this 3D model. I guess most 3D models are actually started basically with primitive shapes, after which you edit them until you get the exact shape you would like. It's also very helpful to have reference that gives these distinct angles from which to work with, because eyeballing a 3D model based on a 3/4 perspective is rather difficult to accomplish. From here on out, I also further extrude the other shapes, such as the feet, from the earlier shapes. Basically, you start with one shape, you keep expanding, and stuff that doesn't directly connect, you make a new shape to expand from. Now here we are looking at the head, which is actually also a rather long cylinder. But here, basically, to make the mouth shape, I basically took the cylinder, cut out the mouth, closed that off, and then started making the teeth one by one and putting them in the right spots. As you can also see, I've also cut the model completely in half. This is so that it's easier to texture and easier to keep it symmetrical, because what we are doing here is we are basically making half a model, copying it, mirroring it, and then gluing it together so that it's perfectly symmetrical for characters that need this, such as Sharkman, who's symmetrical. And here we start with the UV mapping. The stuff you see to the right is the UV map, which you make seams with red lines, and it basically unfolds itself as if it's reverse papercraft along those lines. And then you apply a texture to the unfolded stuff. What you can see here is that some of the footage was corrupted. I still added it so that it's useful. It had some useful parts. I added the text texture, which is the multicolored grid you can see, and to the right, you can now see the texturing window, where I have all the unfolded parts on which you paint, which you then afterwards apply to the model. UV mapping is also a lengthy process, and it's good to keep in mind how you would like your model to unfold while you are modeling it. And now we move towards the texture painting, with which we start with blocking in the major parts of the texture that have the same color. For example, first I would block in all the blue parts on the fins, then all the green parts, and all the, I guess, I would call teal parts, and so forth. I do this until all the same colored parts are colored that way, and then we can move on to detailing and coloring smaller parts. I think this is the way I usually work on these models. With hand-painted textures such as these, the technique that I use is you pick the light source, which in Sharkman's case is above front of him, and then you take it from there. You stay consistent to this light source in everything you do. Of course, some allowances are made for more interesting looking details here and there. On any given model, I would say that eyes are the hardest part for me to draw. Perhaps because with other parts, less than eyes, if you mess the eyes up, they'll look really goofy. And sometimes it's incredibly hard, or this goes for the face in general as well, sometimes it's incredibly hard to really identify what you're doing wrong. I have to make it look less goofy. I also apply shadow to things that are covered by other things, as you can see with the fin. I apply this in a way that is consistent with lighting as displayed with the light source, that we've chosen beforehand. The model's texture is basically done at this point. I'm just applying slight fixes here and there, rotating some stuff, and that's the model. And next up is the rigging. Rigging is basically giving your 3D model skeleton, giving it limbs, allowing it to move. Basically, rigging has two parts. First, you create a skeleton, which fits your model. Here I have, for example, a bone for the mouth and a bone for the head, so that you can basically open the mouth, close the mouth. And weighting, which is the process of giving priority to certain bones to certain parts. So if you move the thumb bone, you should move the thumb. And that's it. Sharkman.exe from Mega Man Battle Network 1. I hope you guys all enjoyed watching this video, and I hope to make this more like this. Don't hesitate to let me know what you think, or leave a comment, or hit me up on Twitter at HeatPhoenix or at MMBN3D.